Good afternoon, good afternoon. What is it today? May the 8th, Friday, May the 8th, 2020. It's sort of lunchtime. I've just had lunch, so I'm just taking a bit of time to think what I'm going to do next. I've been working this morning, even though it's a public holiday here, because May the 8th, for many people in Europe, is celebrated as Victory in Europe or Liberation Day, or various other names are used for it. It commemorates the day that Nazi Germany surrendered military forces to the assaulted Allies. Naturally, each country tends to prefer to think of their own military forces, so the British, the American, of course, Canadian, French. A lot of French forces fought right to the very end for the Allies. Across Europe, a day when we can celebrate. I sometimes think it's a funny sort of day. It was a day, I can't remember exactly how he said it. Churchill said something that we could allow ourselves a brief holiday, a brief fete, a festival. And the image that we get very often are photographs from Trafalgar Square in London or Times Square in America or wherever, of people partying. You know, young people, some in military uniforms, some very much not, celebrating, waving various sorts of flags, and being very, very grateful that the fighting in Europe was at an end. Here, people also remember May the 8th, and I've got to scratch my memory now. 1429, May the 8th, 1429. The lifting of the siege of Orleans by Joan of Arc, St. Joan. That's certainly a day to celebrate. I do feel that celebrations should be muted, because of course the war itself continued, and not just the war, but it was the start of the recovery from it. May the 8th, yes, German forces stopped firing guns, Allied forces stopped firing guns, but across the whole of Europe there was mess, there was tragedy, there was destroyed towns, whole nations in complete turmoil. People from this town, people from this region of France were still in Germany. They had been sent there as part of a forced labour organisation, obliged to work in Germany. Service du travail obligatoire. When you've got nothing to do, look that up on Google or Wikipedia. It tells a strange and interesting story. It is right that we celebrate the end of conflict, but we always need to think about where do we go from here. At the moment, we are locked down in a different sort of war, a war against the effects of a virus that we can't readily see. There are people who will say if you've got an electron microscope you can see it. I haven't got an electron microscope, so I'm going to go with the idea that we can't see the virus. we are being told that the lockdown can be eased, and there are people saying, "Great, great! It's everything is wonderful." Well, no, everything isn't wonderful. Life goes on. I'm still doing the things I want to be doing. It's in many ways it's not had that much of an impact on me because I'm not a great socialiser. You know, I don't spend every Friday night in a pub or anything like that. So personally, the effect hasn't been that grave, but for many people it's been a very, very difficult time. Locked up perhaps in their flats. I used to travel into London on the train, and as you approach London you go past places like Tower Hamlets where there are these terrible, horrible blocks of flats, low-rise flats and high-rise. I used to look at them and think, I could not live in one of those. If you add to that being locked down and not being able to go to the park, not being able to go shopping or to the cinemas or whatever, terrible, terrible situation to be in. But it's important as we move forward that, yes, let's take a brief moment to celebrate a partial relaxation of the lockdown. But let's remember that that particular problem goes on. Anyway, that's enough of me gabbing. I'm going to get into cutting some stone. Dusty old business, makes you choke. I might mix some sand and cement and do some other stuff. I might just walk round the garden because it's a glorious day. Anyway, you lot take care of yourselves.